I can explain this. 12 counties joined the lawsuit. There was one that just
You know, what are you drinking? But I'm in the cabin tonight.
they just they found
I went through 250 gander.
liable for pushing it, knowing it wasn't trying to push it.
Redid my weather and it came up as 81 degrees. Captain not in Rolla, Missouri.
That sounds like a good place to be.
Yeah, yeah, it is a good place to be.
There was no people.
Or you don't need Captain to make us feel bad. They need some.
To sell as many of them as they could, knowing that
They couldn't.
they were they all.
Oh, let's see. Stanley, Idaho is 43, so
I felt at least somebody had this back in the market. Somebody had
Preferring the Hawaii.
one of them.
You know, well, that's what they were saying. That's what they said.
If we're picking places,
That is like, now they're just doing 3, 4, 5, 6 bills. Was that, I couldn't quite hear what
yeah,
they
we
said.
went there at the end of January. Really thought about it.
The ones that I don't enjoy, it always makes
everybody.
just thinking that there's a big percentage.
Finding them on the streets. They brought it, sold it in the street.
But how did they get on the street? Not the
Waiting for food. We didn't do it.
You know, people like asking for prescriptions. No,
You don't
to the street. And I mean, here's the thing: if you're the farm, then you know that there's lots of people good, and you're pushing them around.
After I've turned to
You might turn your head. Beautiful. That's all.
I understand. I've got a year to woo him back. I think they'll figure it out.
I'm sure that's why they're pushing large value.
After he told me he wasn't going to vote.
How many times have we gone for coffee?
So if you get a chance,
I will keep it in mind. It is in my list of things to.
There's not enough money to pay me. You never know when it gets anything to do. I'm starting to understand that.
Good evening, everyone. Glasses here before I start. Do we have someone from the, yes, please come forward.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the privilege to be able to live in this great nation and to be a part of this wonderful community. We pray for your wisdom and discernment among our officials as they meet and gather tonight. Thank you for all those who volunteer and serve in Rolla and help make this such a special place. We ask that you guide our thoughts and our actions, and that we would be ever mindful of the blessings that we receive and those who are far less fortunate than we are, and the opportunity that we have to be able to share what you've blessed us with so many others. For we pray with grateful hearts. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, would you lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Consider approval of city council meetings from March 4th and March 18th. Are there,
Consent agenda to be approved, sir.
Second.
motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There are no public hearings tonight. We have 3 acknowledgements and special presentations. The first is the National Day of Prayer Proclamation. We have a proclamation. I always like to read these because I think the words are very important. So if you will indulge me. National Day of Prayer is locally is May 8th, right? Second, I'm sorry, May 2nd. Thank you. Where it is the duty of nations as well as of men to owe their dependence upon the overruling power of God, to confess their sins and transgressions, in humble sorrow, yet with assured hopes that genuine repentance will lead to mercy and pardon, and to recognize the sublime truth announced in the Holy Scriptures and proven by all history, that those nations only are blessed whose God is the Lord. And whereas we believe that the nation was founded upon a relationship of those who govern with him, who created them, and who ordained the government, that a culture in which godly leaders can mature is a culture of adherence to principles expressed in the Bible, and that biblical principles are the cornerstones of a compassionate and appropriate governance and the best template for a society characterized by morality, freedom, justice, and peace. Whereas we know our leaders are under tremendous pressure, we know that they need our prayers, and our leaders need to know that they are being supported in prayer. We pray for our leaders that we may live peacefully and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. And whereas now is the time to pray for the families of our country. The family is an institution ordained by God. A healthy family should be a place of love, support, spiritual growth. And whereas the youth of today will grow up to lead the 21st century America, each day they are bombarded by conflicting moral standards. We pray for the youth of America and ask the Lord to make them bold in their faith. May He grant them the ability to work together in unity as they seek to light our nation with prayer. Whereas the city of Rolla now joins our country in a day of prayer for our nation, our leaders, our communities, our families, and our youth. Now I therefore, Louis Magditz, Mayor of the City of Rolla, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 2nd, 2019, as National Day of Prayer, with this year's theme being Love One Another. I would like to now present it to some of our local representatives.
We as the National Day of Prayer Committee for Phelps County appreciate the proclamation. We do like joining in with the nation. And in Rolla, we have been doing this. This is our 31st year as a city joining in with the National Day of Prayer. So it is great honor. And our city, I'm just always inspired. And that we do love one another. And this year's theme, of course, was love one another. But the verse is love one another just as I have loved you, John 13:34. And so we want to invite you. We have 3 events. Of course, the morning's prayer breakfast, and I've given everybody a ticket. You don't have to have a ticket to come to the morning's mayor's prayer breakfast, but we do want to invite you to come, and that'll be a little reminder that it's at 6:30 in the morning. We will also be meeting at the Phelps County flagpole at the courthouse at noon or 12:15, and we will recite the national prayer. It will flow from the East Coast all across the nation at noon. So they'll start it out there, and we cover our nation with prayer. And then at the evening at 7 o'clock, we'll be meeting at Salem Avenue Baptist Church on Highway 72, and our pastor Patrick is here. And we will be meeting there and joining together in a community service. And we just want to invite everybody to join. It's such an important time when we can come together and pray for our nation. And we want you to join us. So thank you very much for the proclamation, and please join.
Thank you. Next item presentation is Your Community Health Center. Kelly Miller.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity. Before I begin, I wanted to say thank you to everybody in the room who was able to attend Senator Blunt's visit yesterday at the Community Health Center. It was kind of last-minute notice as he was traveling through, but it was definitely a great opportunity for our community to join in the conversation around substance use disorder and opioids, and to really hear what the Community Health Center is able to do with federal funding. So thank you for your support yesterday. It's much appreciated. So 2019 marked the 5-year anniversary of your community health center in Rolla. And so it just seemed like an appropriate time to update the city on what we have been doing. There has been a lot of growth and a lot of changes for the community health center over the last 5 years. So hopefully, as everybody knows, we are co-located now over on 18th Street. We bought the building next to the movie theater. In January of 17th, we finished our first phase of renovation, which was the dental clinic. At that time, the medical facility was still housed on the then PCRMC, but now Phelps Health campus. They graciously gave us space while we were kind of getting on our feet as a new organization. Opened the dental clinic in January of 2017 and immediately realized that we had underestimated the need for access for dental care in our communities for both patients who have Medicaid, managed care, and then those that are uninsured and below 200% of the federal poverty level, which is a fairly large percentage of our population in Phelps. And then the other counties we serve, which Dent, Crawford, Marys, and a little bit of Pulaski, but primarily Phelps, Dent, and Crawford counties. Because of the need with the dental and the amount of patients that we were seeing, we were able to expedite kind of the medical construction and really build on so that we could have increased capacity. And so May 29th of 2018, we moved the medical clinic and all of our services over to the 18th Street location. So for all of our patients that utilize the health center, which in 2018, that was approximately 6,200 patients and 18,000 encounters, they can now receive medical, dental, and behavioral health services all in one location. As the Senator spoke yesterday, really community health centers are at the forefront of substance use disorder treatment and also behavioral health services, because there's really a reduction of stigma. When you walk into a community health center, you could be going to see Dr. Porter for primary care, you could be seeing Dr. Bagby for dental services, or you could be seeing one of our LCSWs for behavioral health. It really reduces the stigma because nobody knows why you're there. And so we're lucky right now that we're able to be in one location. And like I said, in 2018, it was our biggest year yet. We served almost 6,200 residents with almost 19,000 encounters. We were at 18,530 encounters. Just to kind of give you an idea, that's about $2.3 million in federal funding that's coming to Phelps County through the Community Health Center for various programs. About $1.6 million of that is annual base funding, and then the rest is supplemental funding, whether it's for substance use treatment, quality improvement awards, or various other programs from the federal administration that we take care of. We're now up to 47 employees. When I started 3 years ago, we had 15. So by the end of this year, we should be at about 52 employees. Our budget is about $6 million a year, with about $3.5 to $3.8 million of that being payroll. And so we are growing, and we are providing a revenue source for the counties that we serve, as well as a medical, dental, and behavioral home for the patients that we serve. So I just appreciate the support that we've had from the city and the opportunity to provide an update. If anybody has any questions, we do a lot more than medical, dental, and behavioral health. We've recently launched a transportation program. We're partnering with Missouri Rural Health Association. It's called HealthTran. It's a volunteer transportation program. We currently have 6 volunteer drivers that will transport patients from Phelps, Dent, and Crawford counties at no cost to the patient so that they can access care. Like I said, we have Dr. Porter and Dr. Bowman are providing medication-assisted therapy treatment for patients who have substance use disorder. And so we provide those services on the sliding fee scale, just like our primary care and dental services. Case management, we have a community health worker that's funded through some state level funds, prescription assistance programs, just a whole host of growth and new programs that we're providing. So,
Kelly, it was very enlightening yesterday, and it was nice to have Senator Blunt here.
Yep.
Any questions?
I've got a question. Early discussions were involving the FQHC, or Federally Qualified Health Center. Is that a component still of what your community health center is?
Yes, that is.
That's the designation that gives
Yes.
an advantage for Medicaid or Medicare reimbursements, or what is the qualifier?
So as a federally qualified health center, I think it's important for everybody to understand we operate just like a normal clinic. So anybody can come to the health center. We take private insurance, Medicaid, and Medicare. But I always like to say we get the bonus of taking care of those who don't have access in our communities. And we do that by seeing them on a sliding fee scale. So for a patient who is 100% of federal poverty level or below, which is a lot of your hourly workers at a fast food restaurant, those that are cleaning rooms at hotels, a lot of the industry that we have in our communities, they fall at that level, but they don't qualify for Medicaid because in the state of Missouri, we're not an expansion state yet. And so they might not be able to access health insurance through their job, or they just simply can't afford it. As an FQHC, we see them on a sliding fee scale. So $20 for a medical visit. That includes all of their lab work, any service that they need at the health center. $50 for a dental visit. And then it is tiered up, again, depending on income and household size, but it's very reasonable. So the designation allows us two things. It allows us the federal dollars, as long as we're kind of keeping up our end of the bargain with the federal government and we're meeting the high quality standards. It's a little bit different than being in private practice or another organization. The federal government makes us report on 19 quality standards, whether it's hypertension, A1C control, all kinds of weight management, immunizations. And if we're not continuing to progress to the national average or above every year, we're at risk of losing our federal dollars. So there's the federal dollars. With that comes also, it's called FTCA, so we're not required to carry malpractice because quite honestly, for an organization our size, malpractice is not financially feasible. So again, as long as our providers do what the government says and they, are board certified, residencies, they do everything they're supposed to, then the federal government covers us with Federal Tort Claims Act. So that's the federal benefit. And then absolutely, we do receive a little bit of preferred reimbursement from Medicaid to kind of subsidize some of the care. But it's a little tricky because the way that it works just really simply is it's cost-based. So on the front end, we get a little bit higher reimbursement rate. But at the end of the year, if our costs don't justify our reimbursement, then we owe it back to Medicaid. Mm-hmm. So it's not truly that we're getting preferred reimbursement. It's just that they're kind of fronting us, and then, if our costs are high, what we pay our providers or supplies or whatever, if they meet what our fee schedule is, then we don't owe them. But if we don't, if you're too, fiscally conservative, or you haven't grown, you haven't reinvested as a nonprofit, then Medicaid can take those dollars back.
Thank you.
So, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation, Amy and Stevie, or Amy and Stevie.
Hello. Okay, let's see if I can fix this. I always mess up. Switching it up. Is it F5 or 3? I hit it. Oh, baby. You would think out of all these years I would figure this out one of these days. There we go. Okay. So that's tonight's entertainment. Okay, so Stevie Kearse, the Executive Director of the Rolla Chamber of Commerce. So it's time, that time of year for our 2018 year-end report. Seems so late to say 2018 year-end, but it takes a while. So we got a lot of stuff to cover tonight, but all of the details is in the packet that you guys have before you. I'm just going to go over a couple highlights and answer any questions you guys might have. So we are going to start by reviewing the motel tax revenues. This snapshot here is just 2018. So you'll see the motel tax revenues that the chamber receives each quarter. And then, of course, our year-end total, and then also a comparison to our budget. We are always very conservative with budgeting income for the motel tax, just in case you just don't really know what's going to happen there. So we try to be really conservative, and then it's always great whenever we come over that by the end of the year. This next slide here is a comparison of the motel tax over the past 5 years. So you can see that there has been a steady growth. 2018 was just slightly over 2017. Oh my God.
We got papers
Okay.
messed up. We're good. We're good. We're following.
So 2018 was just slightly over 17, but doing very well when it comes to the motel tax. And just as a reminder, these numbers are a reflection of the 90% that the chamber receives, not the full 100, because the city does keep 10% for admin fees and their own tourism efforts.
And
So-
Stevie, and we also take off the $25,550, which is the annual payment for the building.
Yeah, however, that's reflected in the budget. These numbers are the actual full 90%. So in our budget for motel tax or tourism funds, we reflect all of the income and then we subtract out the land payment and also the parking lot payment. So on page 2 or 3 of your report, you'll see the full budget and it breaks down all of those expenses in great detail. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. This is a breakdown of our expenses. As I already mentioned on page, I think it's page 3, you have all of the detail expense breakdown on what is spent. This is just categorized in building expenses, operating expenses, payroll, and other. And again, you'll get to see all of that in the budget in your report, so you can see what is included in building expenses and such. So you have here our budget compared to our actual, very much in line with what we had budgeted. Payroll was the only one that was a slight difference, and that's because we set our budget at the end of the previous year, so the end of 2017, and we ended up hiring an additional employee. Well, we've already had that position in the past, but we went a few months without it in 2018, so that's a slight difference there compared to what we had actually budgeted. But it all came in great with full income and expenses by the year end, which you'll see here on this next chart. This is the past 5 years income and expenses for all of our tourism efforts. So all of the motel tax income and all of the expenses that we have expended during the years, doing very well, staying within our budget. Okay, moving on to some of the marketing efforts. I don't think that was me. Marketing efforts for 2018. This slide here was our St. Pat's 5K and the beer run. Again, this is for 2018, not the one that we just had this year. It was very successful. The 5K had 202 participants and the beer run had 96 participants. And it's just a fun way to kick off the St. Pat's activities that are held downtown. We like to run on the green streets of Pine Street, so we have it right before the parade kicks off. Then this slide here is just a little snippet of the Big Bam bicycle ride that came through during the summer month. We had about 300 participants come through Rolla, so that was all the cyclists and their entourages, and we hosted the Rolla Refuel. So it was supposed to be a water stop, but we turned it into a little mini festival because that's what we do. We had a couple of our restaurants, actually, not food vendors, but restaurants here in town that came up to the visitor center grounds and served a real quick and easy lunch for all the cyclists. And of course, we had Trilogy playing, we had Public House Brewing Company, and it was just a lovely afternoon. And the cyclists that participated and stopped, they all had great things to say about the Rolla stop. We really made a great impression on them, and they appreciated the hospitality. If you were there for that, you saw how nice it was. It turned out to be a great day. It started out a little rainy, and it turned out to be a perfect Chamber of Commerce day. Here we have our annual Fort Leonard Wood Spouses Tour of Rolla snapshot. In 2018, we did host 19 spouses to a shopping tour of Rolla. We have done this traditionally over, I think, as long as I've been with the Chamber of Commerce, hosted this group. It fluctuates in size each year. Sometimes you have a large group of ladies, sometimes it's a small group. It just depends on what they have going on. But we changed up the tour this year based on some suggestions from them. They have a limited window with us because they do like to drop their kids off at school. They go on their community tours and they like to be back to pick up their kids from school. At least the majority of them do. And So they suggested to us, instead of sending the bus to pick them up and they're trapped on the bus the whole time, they kind of wanted to have a little bit more freedom with their tour of Rolla, spending the day here. They were so great to work with because they made sure that they stopped at the specific places that we had already let know, hey, they're going to be coming, and these businesses were having some discounts and specials and snacks and stuff for them. They made sure they stopped at those, but they wanted to explore Rolla a little bit more at their leisure too, so they explored other places that weren't on the itinerary for the day. And those that could stay a little bit longer, they got to do so instead of having to go back at the time to get a few of them back. So it was a really nice day. They had a great time, and we got to treat them to lunch at Saltwater. They were open just for them, so it was really a lovely time. And then, of course, our annual Give Christmas efforts that we do. This, you probably are familiar with this being called the Angel Tree. We were informed we could no longer call it the Angel Tree this year because that is a trademark term. So we legally complied and we renamed our program Give Christmas. It still works exactly the same. It's Christmas presents for local children, and we did help 140 children this year. All of our angels got adopted, and I'm sure some of you guys participated in that program and either gave monetary donations or bought Christmas presents yourself. For the monetary donations we receive, we go and fulfill all of the remaining angels. So everybody got to have some gifts to open for Christmas. It's a really nice program. Okay, so going into some of our advertising efforts, in your the report that's in your packet, you can see all of the ways. I tried to highlight every place that we advertise in, so you can see we do a lot of marketing for Rolla. We're at Morning Mare each month. Actually, we're there every week. We do a lot of social media marketing on Facebook and Instagram. Amy sends out an e-newsletter each month called The Source, and if you're not receiving that, we'd love for you to get on that email list. You can just go to visitrolla.com and sign up for that. We were in the Kaleidoscope each month, and that's no longer a paper, but we were very consistent with advertising in that. Missouri Life, Show Me Missouri Magazine, Group Tour Magazine. Missouri Life also published a motorcycle guide last year, which we had a Rolla section in that. And then, of course, radio ads in various radio stations, not just Results Radio. 417 magazine. So that was like the bulk of it. There could have been a few extras. But I just put together a snapshot of some of the print ads or social media ads that just so you guys could see what we do. So here's a snapshot of some of the things that Amy puts together. We try to highlight as much as possible that's happening in our community so people can see the variety of activities, things that they could come and see and do in Rolla. And of course the timing of the placement depends on what she highlights in the advertisements, but we always try to drive people back to visitrolla.com. There is a full calendar of events on visitrolla.com, and so we're always trying to drive people to that so they, we might be highlighting one event and there's 5 or 6 other things happening, or they're not coming at that weekend and they want to come a different weekend. So here you can see this was an ad that came out about the time of Route 66 Summerfest. And of course, Ozark Actors Theater has their summer season, so we were highlighting those shows. This is a sample ad because, like I said, depending on the timing of when the ad is placed, we highlight some of the events taking place in our community and then, of course, drive traffic to visit Rolla. Of course, the Citywide Christmas Open House. Each November, we do a lot of ads for that to get people to come to Rolla to do their shopping for Christmas. And then, of course, Santa. We all need to know where Santa is at Christmas time. And we have so many Santa sightings. So this was one of our Christmas ads highlighting all of the Santa sightings in the community and where you could go see Santa and where you could just have some nice holiday celebrations. So again, that's not all of the ads, just a sampling of what we do. Okay, so now we're going to cover our grants. And if you're not familiar, we do set aside a portion of our budget to fund other people and their events or their meetings, conventions, sporting things, to bring them to Rolla. Because sometimes when you're planning an event, you are looking at a couple of communities. Well, if Rolla is going to help basically sponsor your event, give you money to come here, then you might choose Rolla. Plus, we're very hospitable and we help all of the groups if they need to find lodging, if they need to work with, whether it's working with the city to get permits, we point them in the right direction to get what they need for their event. So this year, what we did with our grants is we have two separate ones. The Tourism Partnership Grant, that's for meetings and festivals. And then the sports is specifically for large sporting events, softball tournaments, the Licking summer camps that happen. And all of those are outlined in your report in your packet. You could see that for tourism partnership grants in 2018, we had 11 groups that we funded in the amount of $13,000. And for sports, we had 7 groups for $25,000. So we had a lot of grants this year. And we had more that came to us after funding had been completed. But with our remodel in 2018, the board was very strict with the budget. They didn't want to do more grants because we were spending money on remodeling the visitor center. So we could have funded even more. But that was a good thing because it got people for 2019 to get their applications in early. So we have a lot of those.
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, let's say in 2019, do you have an idea of what the total for the TPG and the sports, what the total amount might end up
Do you
being?
recall what the total is for 2019's budget?
Total budget?
For
the
grants.
Yeah.
For grants, it's $25,000 for sports and it's $15,000 for
TPGs? Okay.
And for 18, that was different, is that right? Because of the remodel and stuff? I don't need to know.
Yeah, it was 25 and 13. We hit budget. So
Okay.
it was just a little bit different, but sometimes we go over budget if we have the money there because we want to help these groups. But we were really strict in 2018.
And so folks can apply, and then based on what they write about it, you guys decide together, hey, we're going to give the grant there.
We have an application process, so they need to come in. They usually talk with Amy personally. She gives them the grant application, answers any questions that they might have. Put them in the right direction, or is it a TPG, is it a sports, that kind of thing. And then they're supposed to submit the grant at least 60 days before their event. If it's less than that, they've lost, they can't do funding. And we have a committee and they actually have a system of grading the application. There's certain things that they look for, their budget, their marketing, there's a lot more than that, but those are a few things. So they look at all of those items, they do, they judge the application, and it's on a point scale, and then they recommend either full funding, because we do have it broke down into different levels. If it's a one-day event versus a 5-day event, you are not going to get $5,000 worth of funding for an afternoon event. So depending on which level it falls in, they will determine whether it's full funding or partial funding, and then that gets presented to our board of directors for final approval.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so moving on to land and building issues for 2018. The biggest one was the remodel of the visitor center. A long time coming. It's absolutely beautiful. If you haven't had a chance to come in and take a look at the visitor center, please come and see us. We still get so many compliments about, I'm like setting off all the technology. We get a lot of compliments about the look of the visitor center because we do have repeat visitors and we have a lot of locals that come in for either chamber business or tourism business, and they are just like, oh, this looks so great. It's so modern and updated. They love the use of the meeting room that we have at the visitor center. It is a smaller room, but it definitely gets utilized. So we like having it there. We use it ourselves also. But it's just a nice, fresh look. It looks more 2019. So come and see it if you have not seen it. Let's see here. And then now we're going to go into the benchmarks. So for the year-end report, our contract outlines a few things for us to cover with you guys so you can kind of see how we've been doing. And we do a comparison over the past 5 years with these benchmarks. So again, this is another snapshot of the motel tax versus the budget. This is for the past 5 years. So you can see that we've been we're always conservative with our budgeted income from hotel tax. I think we're just waiting for the bottom to fall out. I really don't know why we keep budgeting the same amount of money. Motel tax has been consistently coming in at a higher rate. So there, you get to see that. This next one is going to be the average daily rate. So when you stay at a hotel here in Rolla, what your daily rate fee is. And this is a comparison of the data that's collected locally, so from the city, the data that's collected statewide, and then STR is Smith Travel Research. We call it STAR for short. This is a service that we actually pay for. So Smith Travel Research, the major hotels, the big name hotels, they subscribe to this also, and they report all of their data very accurately because they're being compared to their competition, and they want to look good to their corporate headquarters and all that kind of stuff. So this is a really nice report for us to get to see for our local hotels. You can see here that this is the past 5 years, but I do not have the local data from 17 and 18 for a comparison. So I'm just going to focus on the STARS report, which is still going to be a local report. It's just going to be our major chains, not any more locally owned hotels, and compare that to the state average. So the average daily rate for the STAR report was $92.41, and that was below, slightly below the state average. So that's good. That means Rolla hotels are very competitive in their rates, and we're not busting the Missouri average, so that's a great thing. You can get a really nice hotel room in Rolla. The next one is the same kind of comparison, only it's for the occupancy rate, so the number of stays in the hotels. And you can see that the STAR report shows a 57% occupancy rate, and Missouri's state average was 56. So we're 1 point higher, so that's really good. That means our hotels are performing slightly better than the state average. And you can also see that comparison over the last 5 years. Okay, so the next one is a report on our website, visitrolla.com. If you don't know it, go get to know it. It's a really helpful site for the community. A lot of great information for whether you want to play in the community, explore the community, or stay overnight in the community. Like I said, obviously that calendar of events. So you can see here the number of visits over the past 5 years compared to new visits, so new people coming to the site. And we always have a lot each year of new people going to the site. And 2018 was slightly lower than 2017. I have no idea why, but it's still a really good number. We still get a lot of people going to our website. This next one is the number of visitors to the visitor center compared to first-time visitors. We get a lot of first-time visitors, as you can see. Of course, this is to the best of our ability, this tracking. Really the only way to track the visitors, we have a sign-in sheet. We encourage them to sign in. We also try to track on our own, but you always miss some people. And of course, you miss the people that come up to the kiosk that's outside afterwards. We do track how many brochures are picked up there, but it's still not a number of people. So we're still happy with the number of visitors to the visitor center. I really think a lot of people do more stuff online nowadays than they did even back in 2014, when you see we had a lot of visitors to the visitor center. But we always get so many compliments, like I said, from the people that are there and the repeat visitors. Like, we are their stop. They stop at the visitor center every time they're passing through the community, and they love Rolla, and we get to hear about all of that too. So, yeah.
Quick question was just, when you get off that west interchange, you guys have a sign that at least shows visitor center. I know there's no welcome to Rolla, but there is a visitor sign.
Yeah,
okay.
Whenever you're coming off of the roundabout, there is a tourist information center sign. And so you can turn right there in that road between us and Tater Patch, but if they do happen to come from a different direction or go around Tater Patch, there is also another blue sign on Bridge School Road that says Chamber of Commerce and kind of directs them that way. So they can always find us. It's leaving that is like, which way do I go? They go left, they see the do not enter, they flip a U-ey and go the other way. So it's fun to watch that. And then here's a snapshot of our grants over the past couple of years, and so you can see how much we spent on tourism partnership grants versus sports tourism grants. So continues to grow. 2016 was a really great year. for TPGs, Tourism Partnership Grants. You can see we did fund a lot, but so if you ever hear of anybody that is wanting to have an event in Rolla, send them our way so we can help them and possibly sponsor or support their event through one of our grants. Okay, so that is the end of my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Any questions for Stevie?
I just had one quick one. You mentioned the conference room.
Yes.
Obviously, you guys use that, but is that who else is available to use that?
Anyone that wants to use it is welcome to use it. I would recommend that they call us and make sure someone else isn't using the room. Sirloin Stockade used it when they were having their interviews for when they were getting ready to open. The new Tiger Express Car Wash just recently used it for interviews. Of course, we use it for some of our executive board meetings and our committee meetings and such, but anyone that wants to use it is welcome to. We also have the lounge out front that I have seen local people use that as well. They might have someone meeting them in Rolla, and it is a safe public location to meet people. So you'll see them sitting over in that lounge area, conversating or exchanging items, things like that. So they can use that as well if it's just like a two-person gathering. But if it is a true need for a meeting, they just need to give us a call. We'll put them down for the room if nobody else is using it.
Thank you. That's very good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Exciting.
Thank you.
Next section is report of mayor or council reports and boards and commissions, A through G. Are there any questions? If not, moving on to old business, we have two items. First is an ordinance ratifying ordinance 4454. Steve?
Yes, good evening. Per section 67.280 of Missouri Revised Statutes, there was a requirement to make the technical rules available in the city clerk's office for a 90-day period before enacting. And this is just a ordinance ratifying that action. We did make them available for the 90-day inspection process, and we're requesting a final reading of this ordinance. And I'll try to answer any questions you may have. Yep.
Have you had any more comments from contractors out there?
None. I think they're pretty well all on board.
Steve, I got a question. Rodney's not here tonight, but I saw they have in draft form some revision as to how contractors and builders, whatever, install water lines and whatnot. Is there a connection between these building codes and what RMU does and requires?
The building codes only, they only take effect from the public or the entity's point of entry. For example, if it's electric, the point of attachment is, if it's overhead, is at that weatherhead. If it's underground, it's at that transformer. So we do not inspect anything from the right-of-way in or out to their hookup as far as water lines, and that goes. But anything that's on.
So it's the right-of-way to the building.
From the right-of-way to the building is all.
Doesn't matter where the meter's at.
Well, they have standards where they want their water meter, yes, but we only inspect it from the water meter in.
Okay. I know they have standards. I'm just asking, are those standards tied to the building codes? And you're saying no. Building codes.
Not necessarily, but I would say that there are approved materials, and they all fall under that same category of approved materials. For example, there was a requirement for years that the water line be 5-foot copper. They found out that over a period of time that copper line was having some reaction to the irons and stuff that was in the soil, and they were deteriorating. So now they want to use plastic. So they have a certain standard, but it all falls within the guidelines of the building codes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Steve?
I have one.
Steve?
So I know we're in the process of finalizing this upgrade. What do you think the next time we're going to do this? We're not going to wait another 19 years or whatever it was.
Well, in the original ordinance, we put in that we would go ahead and bring forth to the city council every 2-year process of the codes, which would be every 6 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Final reading, please.
An ordinance ratifying the updates to the 2018 IBC approved by ordinance number 4454 dated December 17, 2018, following a 90-day notice period.
Proposed ordinance passed.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Schott,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Hines,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Everly, yes,
Murphy,
yes,
11 ayes.
Ordinance is approved. Next item is an ordinance approving Project 480 micro paving. Darren?
So at the last council meeting, council awarded the bid to Donald's Construction Company LLC for the 2019 micro paving. So tonight, staff's asking for the final reading of the ordinance, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Donald's Construction Company LLC for $388,814.55. Any questions?
Any questions on the project? Final reading?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement with the city of Rolla, Missouri and Donaldson Construction Company LLC for 2019 micropaving project number 480.
Proposed ordinance passed.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Young,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Hines,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Schott, Everly,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Moving on to new business. First item is a request from Missouri S&T Greek Week Games.
Yeah, for at least the last 15 years, the city has hosted, oh, we've got a representative. Well, come on up. So let me introduce it, and then I'll let you answer questions, so that'd be perfect. So for the last 15 years, the city has hosted the S&T Greek Week Games that are held. They're held September 7th and 14th at the airport. It's worked out very well. Part of that approval always comes to council, but we also grant them the permission to do liquor sales, beer sales there as well. So, are you Zachary?
Yes, I am.
Oh, wonderful. Zach's got the letter that was included in your council packet, and is always they're very organized by getting the certificate of insurance to protect both them and us for the issue. But why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about the event?
For the event, it would be for September 7th and 14th of 2019, so next fall semester. For our annual Greek Week on this September 7th, we would be holding our opening game ceremony there. There would be about 1,500 Greek life students there at the fields having fun playing games, and then obviously we'll have the beer garden. It's only available to those over 21. We have the police there to make sure, check IDs, and we have an approved vendor. We always use Tater Patch for them to sell there. And then it's basically the same thing, but for closing games on the 14th. And it's just the opening and closing of the event.
And limiting of driving back and forth, so I'm sure there's arrangements
Yes.
for the
and then
bus
we have
haul.
buses to drive students back and forth from the fields.
So we do give the IFC group the authority to park out there, but we really encourage you to discourage the students, and they find their way out there, or locals find their way out there. And that's the one issue that we tend to have out there, is if too many of them drive and they're parking all around, and that becomes a little bit of a problem, especially if the weather becomes inclement. But I know you guys do all you can to encourage it, but you know,
Yeah, for this next year, we actually have parking permits for the particular houses that are going, so they're allowed to have 2 vehicles per house to get their, if they're having barbecue equipment or getting chairs and tables out there just for their group, but that would be just 2 cars per organization. And those are the only ones that are permitted to park there. We ask everyone else that parks there to leave.
Sounds good to me. Any questions?
Is it open to the public?
No, it is not.
The beer or the games? Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to honor the request?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
thanks, Ed.
Next item is a motion authorizing the closing of certain streets during Summerfest.
This year's Summerfest will take place on Friday evening, May 31st, and all day Saturday on June 1st. The event is virtually identical to previous years. I understand there's not going to be a tennis tournament, but I think everything else is pretty much the same. We'll be closing the roads in and around the festival lots, Pine Street, 8th and Oak. be happy to try to answer any questions.
Steve, do they still have the bike race, the criterium?
No. I think they do like a fun run for the kids, but that's it. And I think there's a little ride in the morning at Matt's Steakhouse that goes to St. James and back.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and approved to close said streets. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Let me just, real quick, check on Steve. Do you remember if they're doing the burnout again this year?
They told.
Okay.
It's on the map.
The burnout. Yeah.
Do you know if they're doing the hot dog contest?
That I do not know, but they told me everything was identical last year except the tennis tournament. That's basically the extent of my conversation with them.
Next item is an ordinance vacating an existing storm sewer.
We had a request from Gail.
Can you switch the screens?
Gail Bodenheimer, who is purchasing 1409 Timber Lane Court. Apparently, the house was built, Scotia, into a storm sewer easement. I know that write-up says sanitary, but it is strictly a storm sewer easement, and there's no storm sewer in the easement. So it's not being used right now. Basically, it goes in about a foot. The resolution that you have tonight describes that little triangle outside of that easement. And bottom line is, in order for her to get complete title insurance on the piece of property, that little triangle has to come out to make the underwriters happy. So that's why I'm here tonight, laying that request. We don't have a problem with it. It's fine with us.
So,
Go ahead, Jody.
So, there's nothing there now? You foresee no need for anything ever in the future?
Not really. I'm not so sure of it that I'd want to give the whole thing up, but I think 1 foot of it is not going to be a big problem.
There's no other questions? Can we have the first reading?
An ordinance vacating a portion of an existing sewer easement in Lot 24 of the Silverleaf subdivision.
Next item is an ordinance authorizing me to enter into agreement with Javation.
There's a lot of moving parts on this item. There's a selection that John and I reviewed the RFQs, and we scored them independently, came up with a top score on, Javation came out on top on both of those. The two different RFQs, one for airport planning and environmental consultant, and one for an airport engineering consultant. I've listed out the projects in the write-up, what they may work on over a period of the next 5 years or so. Typically, these contracts are good a period of up to 5 years. We've used Javation in the past. We've been very pleased with their work product, and they do an excellent job of making sure that we stay inside the lines when it comes to all the federal and state regulations. Also included, besides the approval of adopting Javation as our consultant, is a base contract that we'd use as the contract to do various task orders going forward. The first task order is in the ordinance tonight, and that's a property map update. Basically, that's the state and federal government makes us go through on each grant cycle to make sure that we've kept all of our property lines and aviation easements and everything all up to snuff. So that's the first thing that we're going to work on. It does look like we may be funded for an overlay project in the not too distant future on runway 422. It's about a $2 million project. For the most part, it should all be funded through the state and federal government. We may have to pay some of our entitlement money towards the design, but I think the actual construction work is going to be covered. Haven't heard that for final yet, but I think it's probably going to happen. I know I covered a lot of different things there. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Mayor, if I can just add a little bit to that. So the list on Steve's write-up on the cover sheet on page 6D1, Those are projects that are part of our 5-year capital improvement plan that we have to file with MoDOT, so we're not obligated or committing to any more than the 2 projects that are here, which is the 422 rehab and the Exhibit A map. So each of those come back to you at a later date. They're always covered 90%, 90 or 95% actually, through our entitlement or our block grants through the state and FAA. But as Steve was saying, we're actually in for a 100% grant on the rehab project. We're just waiting to hear whether or not that's an extra funding element. But design will get underway this year. We'll come back next year with plans to do that rehab work.
Steve, typically our work over the years has been maintaining the runway, the lights, and all those sorts of things. But some of the projects you talk about, develop an airport layout plan, master plan, assistance with required environmental actions, blah, blah, blah. Is there something changing? I mean, this seems to be much more than an overlay.
Yeah,
is there something out there that
I don't know of anything. I'm not sure. I really think the only thing we're really going to have to do is a property map upgrade. I don't think there's been enough changes to require us to do a new ALP, but it could. And if it does, I mean, one thing the feds like to do is a lot of planning with all the updates, with making sure all the easements, navigation easements and whatnot, conform to all the new standards that seem to completely change every year. So that may happen. I don't have any strong feelings that we need to do a new ALP, no.
So you're thinking about this time just
focus. The most pressing project we have.
Okay, so you're focusing just on the overlays then?
Yeah.
Any questions for Steve? Matt?
Steve, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So 1 and 2 on your write-up, the overlays, the $2 million and the $1.6 million, that would be at a minimum 90% funded by grant money from the federal government or state government?
Yeah, those are possible projects. The only one that's in contention right now is the overlay project, the $2 million one.
Okay. And then these other costs, this $350,000, $150,000, and $500,000 estimated costs, those are costs that if we decide to do these things would be from our budget or your budget?
We're typically on those maintenance projects, we like to take those out of our entitlement money, which we get $150,000 every year. We let that accumulate and usually use that money to do the maintenance type of work.
Can you explain what the entitlement money is?
The general aviation airports receive $150,000 a year from the federal government to help with maintenance and this type of activity. We're included in that, and we get that, and it's been going on now for probably 20 years. Okay. We've done a lot of work with that money.
And the revenue for that, it comes from the taxes on airline tickets, quite frankly. That goes into the FAA. The FAA redistributes that $150,000 a year for use of these kinds of improvements.
That's a 90-10. We use 90% entitlement, and then we have to come up with 10% of our own.
So you wouldn't expect anything more than, or you expect very little of our general revenue or budgeted money to come out and pay for these things?
We've been very, very fortunate in that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I did. Will this increase capacity out there, or is it primarily maintenance? And
it's a maintenance overlay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that overlay is pushing 20, 25 years old. It's been seal coated a couple of times. It's probably due.
Okay. Thank you.
More from environmental factors than loading, but it sits out there and bakes in the hot sun. So
there's a little fear that we might have to reconstruct that runway. And when they're reconstructing the runway, they're probably going to pull in the width of the runway throughout. So the airport interests aren't interested in having that pulled in any sooner than we absolutely have to. And pavement is much cheaper than a total reconstruct of the runway. So this might get us, I don't know, Steve, 8, 10, 12, 15 years down the road. We're going to have to face that issue ultimately of the surface conditions.
Yeah, we've been arguing that for
15, 20 years.
A lot of years, and we've not done it yet, so maybe we'll continue to argue that for another 20, 25 years. Good idea.
Is there somebody that tells us when that time is? Or we have we have control over when we rebuild?
Well, they'll tie it to the grants, and as long as the aviation, in this case, consultant can prove that that condition is solid enough, they work on our behalf to push that off. FAA would just as soon have that whole thing redone and scaled down a little narrower than what it's currently there. One day they may say, okay, we're only going to pay for this much of the widening. If you want to keep the extra width on your runway, city, you're going to have to pay up that difference separately. But so far, the consultants have been able to make the case not to reduce that width.
So for the non-pilot, isn't a wider runway better than a narrow runway?
Yeah, we think so. But
Okay.
the federal government's having to pick up that extra cost, and that's what they're trying to reduce widths
They're
to.
getting
Based on
thrifty all of a sudden, huh?
Yeah.
Any other questions? First reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the city of Rolla, Missouri and J'Aviation Incorporated for planning, environmental, and consulting services.
Moving on to claims and/or fiscal transaction. The first is awarding a bid for some splash zone improvements.
Good evening. So we received bids for 2 cantilever shade structures, game tables, and a surface area that will replace the existing sand area at Splash Zone and the umbrella shades that have deteriorated due to weather exposure. I'll put up a picture of what it was like. Yes, sir.
Let's switch it.
Okay. All right. So we really faced an issue where we really needed to replace the sand area that was really making an impact on the operations. We were taking out several gallons at the end of the season, and every night we'd have to empty out quite a bit. So just got to the point it was really problematic and deteriorating the life long-term of our pumps and filters in our splash zone. So we came up with this option to replace that, turn it into a birthday party area, which can also be used by people who come there. So we hope we'll do a lot of rentals there, as I noted in the note. And this will be another application of our Prop P funds. They're the first really significant expenditure at Splash Zone that we've had. We've used those funds, as you know, for playgrounds, bathrooms, and other structures and paving throughout our park. So we think Splash Zone's going to need a little facelift, and we hope this will do it. The new look, minus the palm trees, will be something more like this. And it said we'll have game tables in this area here. We're asking that council approve the low bid of Play and Park Structures to go with our surface and our game and shade area. And also we are asking the council to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the contract with Play and Park. Questions?
I've got just a couple. The games, does the contractor decide what games it is, or you guys get to decide what games, what are examples of that?
Well, yes, we did actually. We had several ideas. We looked at everything from a tetherball to, we already have a cornhole anyway there, but our option really is what we wanted to go with was so we picked it.
Okay, good.
The checkers and chess kind of combination of things. And then we anticipate putting a few outdoor type games in that area. So we'll have a lot more play.
Ping pong, football, something.
Yeah, we're also looking at the outdoor ping pong table as well.
Okay. 2 other quick questions. The old equipment and stuff, is that something, I mean, it probably won't get much, but is it something you put on Gov Deals or something like that?
It's rusted pretty bad. A couple of the structures had basically finger length and width splits in the metal at the base. So yeah, if we can get some use out of it, we certainly will. But
just curious,
they're not in great shape.
The umbrella's probably not for sure. The little play things maybe could be reutilized somewhere. But
yeah, that's true, because the umbrella structures were the worst.
Okay, and the last question was just the poured in place. I'm just curious, does that mean concrete or is that some sort of composite? I'm just curious what it is.
Okay, so the pour in place is the exact same surface we have at Green Acres Playground. So it's kind of a spongy, rubbery, and it goes over a concrete surface. So it basically, of all the surfaces that you can have, it's probably the one that will last the longest and structurally is really sound, at the same time of giving you a safety and less slippage issue as well. So when we bid it, actually, we went two options. We also asked for artificial turf, which generally has tended to come in lower than the port in place, because again, that tends to be about twice the life expectancy. But the interesting thing, and when we did our bids, is we got some alternate bids, which we also put that language in there, that the port in place actually ended up in most cases cheaper, and considerably cheaper, as you saw from the range of options. So we thought, hey, this is a really good opportunity here, because we get a better, longer lasting surface for really, actually in most cases, somewhat, I think all but one bid, less money. So we're really pleased with that. Plus, I should have brought an actual composite of it, but it's a really vibrant material, so you can work in all kinds of colors. And that's what we also bid, as a full color. So we think visually it will add, as I noted in my notes, quite a bit of aesthetic appeal. So I think that will be a nice addition, benefit of going with that better surface.
Yeah, thanks for all your work and research, and it looks great.
Who's picking the color design?
Actually, Marcy and Kaya, who are our aquatics folks, they will decide on that. So we've kind of got ideas already.
Can I put in a bid for dolphins? Maybe?
Well, we like kind of the dolphin blue. We're also looking at maybe doing some other things, possibly some dolphin waste cans there too. Kind of a little motif, if I can get one that's not too expensive. So, other questions?
Floyd, I just had first of all, I want to say I think this is a good idea. I mean, I'm glad we're doing this and moving forward with this. I just wanted to get an understanding from you of why this was budgeted for $45,700 and the best bid we've got is $52,900.
Well, we guessed the 45 was kind of a guess on what we thought it would come in based on the time when we first started working this in budget last year. I said our anticipation was the artificial turf would be cheaper. We also looked at actually just putting in sod back, which would have saved some money. But when we talked to the Parks Board, who I failed to note approved this, several of them said, "Whoa, it's going to be kind of a messy operation if you don't go something with a little better surface." And I said, so initially that's why we went out with the bid for the artificial turf, because at that time we expected it to be cheaper. But that has gone up considerably, and the port in place has come down. So yes, it is more money than we initially budgeted, but as we've seen with some other projects, like our mowers that council approved, that came in at about $7,000 to $8,000 less. So we think some of the other things we've also got pending for later on down the road for this fiscal year, like Coventry Playground, we think we can save some money there, mainly because we are seeing pricing come down. So we anticipate with the projects that we've got to come in under budget on several of those others to make up for this. And further, I would also say that we had money we budgeted for last year with several of our paving projects that did not happen last year. So we built up a reserve that are actually taking place this year.
Well, it sounds like we're getting a better product than you originally thought as well. Is that fair to say?
That is definitely true to say,
okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
There's no other questions. This will be a two-step process. So the first, is there a motion to award the bid to Play and Play Structures?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Could you read the resolution, please?
A resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a contract with Play and Park Structures, Park Hills, Missouri, for the purchase of a shade game area.
Move resolution passed.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a motion awarding a bid for Project 479 McCutcheon.
So city staff asked for and received bids for Project 479, McCutcheon Roundabout. This project will provide a new concrete roundabout at the intersection of McCutcheon Drive and St. Maria Street. It also will have new curb and gutter from approximately 400 feet south of California Drive to Liberty Drive. Not in the write-up, it's also got sidewalks also Bid summary is attached. So staff is recommending a motion to award the bid to the low bidder, Lehman Construction, and we're asking for a first reading of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter a contract with Lehman Construction for $205,706.65. Any questions?
Darren, how will this one compare with the one on Forum?
Be very similar, other than the concrete will extend a little further from the roundabout.
It'll extend a little bit. Say that again?
So the roundabout at 18th and Forum, just kind of the center of it's concrete. This one will be centered concrete, and pavement will actually extend all 4 legs away from the roundabout for a short distance, just for maintenance reasons. It's really tough to work inside a roundabout. So, we're going to do concrete pavement to the end of the islands, essentially, is about the only difference.
So no chance of some aesthetics within the roundabout?
I don't see any chance for it.
We'd like to do that still. It's not a part of this design project, but we would like to figure out a plan on really all these roundabouts. But there's some limitations even in the ones with MoDOT, but for instance, what we got on Highway E, that'll never happen again. The university was able to get that through with way more landscaping and signage. But there are some things, as long as you can visually see through them, we just need to work up a plan conceptually. But we need to do something on all those.
There's an area in the roundabout in the center that's going to be grass. So.
Oh, okay, there is then.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, there's an opportunity for the city. I wouldn't recommend letting an individual do something in the roundabout.
Oh, this provokes some thoughts. Stephen?
Yes.
I gotta ask. So you budgeted $300,000. You had 3 bids that were at or above that, and we're being told to take one that was 2/3 of that. I want to make sure that if we approve $205,000 for a $300,000 project, that's enough money.
So I called the contractor and said, I'm taking this to council. This much of a difference. I've got to ask. Is everything good in your bid? And they said they are confident in their numbers. His words to me were they really wanted this project. It is a unit bid price contract, so I mean, they'll only get paid for what they put in. So I don't see any problem.
Just in case everybody remembers, Lehman is who built Highway 72.
And gave us a really good price on
$1 million under budget.
Okay. I just have to ask.
I asked the same question.
Appreciate your answer. Thank you very much.
Jimmy Dale?
Can you tell me again what the justification is for this roundabout on McCutcheon? There's not enough traffic up there really to justify a roundabout. We don't have a completion of 18th Street running up there to it. I really feel like this is throwing good money down the tube.
Well, and Steve maybe or Darren can address that further, but the plan, you're right, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do this without the 18th Street connection. But someday that 18th Street connection is going to go through there. And while the development was going on in McCutcheon development, we wanted to solve the issue now. We got the right-of-way for it as part of this project. So ultimately, it's going to be needed is that 40-acre track in between there develops. When that happens, we don't know, but to try and go back and build that roundabout after the fact is going to be a real problem. So I don't know, Steve or Darren, you guys.
Traffic is still not going to justify the need for a roundabout up there. Traffic's not that great up there on McCutcheon.
It's not currently, but if that track, for instance, if the Walmart Neighborhood Market would have gone there, and we know that didn't, but there's going to be another opportunity to do something there. That's a big piece of property that's going to someday develop. That's going to create a lot more traffic. And we just want to get the improvements done prior to that.
What makes you think you're going to get 18th Street up through there, though?
Well, before anything else can happen on that property, they've got to build that extension.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's not going to go through because he's not going to do anything on that property. I've already talked to him. He's not going to do anything because we want too much. It's going to cost him $500,000 before he even gets to do the thing up there.
Jimmy Dale, that's part of it.
Beg your pardon?
That's part of it. The other part is the city and the community has not come to an agreement on what they want to see on that 40 acres.
R1.
R1. That's the driving issue.
R1, I guarantee you, if it was my property, I'd be fighting you tooth and nail and I'd get me a good attorney, and I would fight you on the thing for R1 if I wanted to go some. We passed up a good shot of putting a good community up there, and then we backed down on it,
What are you talking about?
on the property up there.
When?
Between Forum and McCutcheon?
We're getting off topic.
We had a good bid and it was turned down, guys. A good project up there. Would have been very, very quiet, very easy. Would have been a problem, but we turned it down.
Okay, so very good question. The answer was, we're putting in infrastructure for the future.
Correct. And I would like to point out, I mean, roughly half the bid is for the curb and gutter and, sidewalk work that we'd be doing even without the roundabout. So roughly half the cost is the roundabout, the other half is for doing the work we'd be doing anyway.
Any other questions? If not, first reading?
I just have a few comments. So I spoke with a lot of the people in Liberty Heights over the weekend, and not a lot of people mentioned the roundabout. A lot of people did mention about the development, but the people that did mention the roundabout going in were not in favor of it. I did not have anybody speak in support of it. I generally like the roundabout that's on 18th Street and Forum. I didn't at first, but I drive it every day and I've gotten used to it, and I realize how much quicker traffic goes and how much safer it is. And having walked on McCutcheon on the stretch that you are planning on putting on a sidewalk, which I think is an amazing idea because it's a dangerous area, I think a roundabout will help slow down the traffic, even if we don't have 18th Street in at this point. So I think it'll be safer, and I think even though there is some opposition and people generally don't like roundabouts, I think I'm in favor of it.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping definitely it'll slow down traffic over there. And
Roundabouts are one of them things, either you love them or hate them. There's no in between.
I think a lot of our community has gotten the education out of them that we had hoped they had gotten over the last few years. It's working out great.
If anybody remembers that 18th Street and Forum intersection before the roundabout, I mean the roundabout was a huge improvement.
Right.
Yeah.
I just make a comment that I think anything new, until people get used to it, it's something people are concerned about. But I think like these, like was mentioned, it becomes something we get used to and has actual other safety benefits. So.
First reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the city of Rolla, Missouri and Lehman Construction, LLC for McCutcheon Roundabout Project number 479.
So moved.
Next item is a motion.
That's next time. I thought we had already done the motion.
That was first motion.
Wait, it's the first reading. First reading.
Did we do bid work?
Usually I make that mistake. Okay.
It was a motion to award and then a first reading.
Yeah, I don't think we did the motion to award the bid yet.
Let's rewind.
Sorry, Mayor.
Okay, so is there a motion to award the bid to Lehman Construction?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on to, next item is a motion awarding the bid for project 490.
We're not going to do first reading of the ordinance. They did that one. Okay, all right. So we asked for and received bids for project 490. It's 2019 asphalt phase 3. It's got several sections in it. This will actually do the overlay portion of McCutcheon that we just spoke about up to the roundabout. It'll do Sally Road from Old Wire Road to West Side Drive, and 18th Street from Sharp Road to Old St. James Road. Bid summary is attached. I'd also like to mention the Move Rolla Transportation Board has agreed to pay approximately $27,000 of the Sally Road overlay portion of the project. So the staff is recommending awarding bid to the low bidder, Capital Paving Construction, and a first reading of the ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter a contract with Capital Paving Construction for $183,190.95. Any questions?
If there's no question, is there a motion to award the bid to Capital Paving?
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? First reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, certain agreement between the city of Rolla, Missouri and Capital Paving and Construction LLC for 2019 Phase 3 asphalt improvements, project number 490.
Moving on to citizen communication, is there anyone that would like to speak to city council? If not, mayor, city council comments. I just have one. You know, one of the things that has made Rolla so successful is civic involvement. And tomorrow there's an election. We have incumbents, we have candidates. These folks are going to give their time and efforts, and they're working very hard. So would appreciate if everybody can go out and vote tomorrow. Any other comments? Jimmy Dale?
Just like to warn everybody, grass mowing time, buddy. That grass is growing and it's getting thick out there with all the water we've had, so you better tune them up, sharpen them up. 'Cause I'm gonna be writing them up.
He does. I sign a lot every week. Comments for the good of the order? If not, is there a motion to go into closed session? There's one item scheduled, which is real estate. Motion made in second. Roll call vote.
Murphy?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Muse?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Eberly?
Yes.
Roder?
Yes.
Schott?
Yes.
Crown?
Yes.
11 A's.